What's up? How you doing? Welcome to episode 2 of the Hawks Hoops podcast. I am, of course, your host. I'm, of course, your host, Hawk. There we go. Shout out to last week. We missed last week because I moved, and moving took a lot of energy. And I just got my setup, my desk set up complete about maybe a couple of hours ago, just in time to record this episode Monday night. If you're new around here, thanks for pulling up to the Hawks Hoops podcast. Episodes drop every Tuesday morning, so you have them on your commute to work. They're recorded Monday nights. So if something crazy happens Monday night and I miss it, don't talk about it in the podcast. That's why. You can find the Hawks Hoops podcast on wherever podcasts are found, except Apple Podcasts. They're still dragging their feet. I've been going back and forth with them. I'm going to try to get them up as soon as possible, but you can still find me on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Anchor. You can find me on my YouTube channel on Hawks World. All those links will be on my bio on Instagram. You can find me. Hawks Hoops podcast. Appreciate you for pulling up. Appreciate you for listening. So we're going to hop right back. We're going to hop right into it. Got a lot to talk about today. The All-Star game was Sunday night. All-Star weekend literally was Sunday night. The whole weekend was one night, and I'm just going to give my quick thoughts on it. Not going to go into too much depth about it because there's some other things I want to talk about today, but everything just felt so fast for the All-Star game. Now I get it. They wanted to do everything in one night because they were trying to mitigate COVID and mitigate some of the contact players might have with with each other, and trying to make sure everybody came out of there COVID free. There was a brief scare with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. They weren't actually allowed to play because the barber they went to tested positive. The last I heard, both of them still have come through with negative tests, last I heard, but they weren't allowed to play because they had that close proximity with someone who did test positive. But overall, the night to me felt pretty fast. I didn't actually watch the skills challenge. It's usually something I pay attention to, but that's usually when it comes on Saturday night, and I try to turn on All-Star Saturday night in time to catch those things. But I missed it. By the time I turned it on, the three-point contest was just starting, and I had a little mixed bag about the three-point contest and how I felt. I feel like they didn't necessarily get the best shooters they could have. Like, I'm really surprised Dame wasn't in it. I'm surprised, in my opinion, you could have threw like Luka in there. Devin Booker, if he was healthy, would have been in there. But I get Dame didn't want to be in it because he wanted to rest. But I would have loved to see Dame in there. But Mike Conley gave us a great show. In that second round, Mike Conley gave us Steph a run for his money, but Steph's going to be Steph. And, he won by 1 point, so shout out to him. The dunk contest was underwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't really see that much promo about the dunk contest leading up to it, which I get because it's COVID. They probably weren't able to do a lot of different promos that they normally do, which is understandable. But I'm not even gonna lie to you. I didn't know who was in the dunk contest until the dunk contest started. When halftime came at the All-Star game, I looked at my boy G and I was like, wait, who's dunking? Like, who is dunking in the dunk contest? And if you don't know, it's Anthony Simons, Obi Toppin, and Cassius Stanley. And Anthony Simons won. And it wasn't that it was a bad dunk contest. I'll get shout out to the dunkers. They did stuff that I can't never do. You know what I mean? Shout out to them for sure. And I've definitely seen worse dunk contests. But it just wasn't really nothing special. And I think part of that was the fact that it was all in one night. And it felt so rushed. Like, the first round happened in the blink of an eye. And then in the final round, they each had one dunk. And I didn't even realize that's what they were going to do was one dunk. Because then when they did them back-to-back, and I was like, wait, they didn't show any scores. And then next thing you know, they're just showing who they picked. There wasn't a score. It was just, we want this person to win, Which was cool, but I'm looking forward to when COVID's over. I hope the NBA doesn't look at this as an opportunity to be like, hey, we can continue to do everything in one night. But people were talking about it on, other podcasts, and I've seen it on blogs, and people are talking about it on Locker Room. But it's not going to happen. The NBA, the All-Star Weekend is such a ad revenue type event for them, and so much money they make off of that. So it's definitely not going to, once COVID's over, it's going to go back to a full weekend. Trust me. The game itself, let's talk about it. I didn't actually get to watch the draft of the All-Star game last week when LeBron picked his team and Durant picked his team. But I remember waking up the next morning and thinking to myself, did Durant draft his team or did the computer draft his team for him? Because LeBron's team on paper was way better than Durant's team. The game started out close. It started out all well and dandy. And it was actually exciting to watch. And then Team LeBron just blew the game wide open and outscored them 60-41 in the second quarter. And then by that point, it was basically over. Granted, it was still entertaining to watch because these are still all-stars. Players really put on a show. But it just didn't feel... It felt like all the highlights that I was enjoying as I was watching it came from Team LeBron. But that might be because of the players that were on Team LeBron. Like, granted, Team Giannis was missing... Team Durant was missing Devin Booker and Joel Embiid, one due to COVID, two due to injury. So I get it that maybe with those two there, the score might have been a little closer. Maybe, something could have happened a little different. But at the end of the day, Team LeBron won 170-150. And shout out to Giannis. He won the Finals MVP. Didn't miss a shot, had 35 points. But in my opinion, it had to at least go to either Steph or Dame because the way Steph all game was going crazy, right? And it felt like to me Dame really went off in that fourth and that second half. And the shots they were taking, the 3-pointers that they were taking, Dame pulled up. At one point, he pulled a regular jumper from the other side of half court, like in front of the half court line. They were pulling up with toes on the half court line, just regular standing threes and cashing them out back to back, having a good time. And that was so exciting. I'm not going to lie. I look up, and next thing you know, they're talking about some Giannis hasn't missed a shot, and he's like 12 for 12 at that point. And I'm like, wait, I don't even remember seeing Giannis go off like that. It just felt like what Steph and Dame were doing was a little more exciting. It felt like it just got the crowd, the little bit of crowd that was there, and the players themselves seemed to be reacting a little bit more to Dame and Steph. A player like Giannis is going to go off every All-Star game because of the fact that nobody's really playing defense like that. This is not a slight to Giannis. I don't want this to come off like that. This is not a slight. Shout out to him for winning. But a player like Giannis is going to win the All-Star MVP a lot if they want to go get it because no one's really going to try to stop him when he's driving to the paint or when he's trying to grab a rebound and go right back up and dunk the ball. No one's really playing defense like that to really try to stop him. So if he wants to go to the rim every time he has the ball, he's going to go to the rim every time he has the ball. But I want to get off of the All-Star game really quick, and I want to talk about some of the moves that are available to teams coming up. And I didn't really do this on purpose, but because there's so many moves. If you don't know, the trade deadline is March 25th. That's when it's later than it's pretty much ever been. It's usually around the time of All-Star break, but because the season started later, they gave it more time for the trade deadline for teams to be able to make moves, try to retool, and be better for the playoff push or a championship push if you're that type of team. So with March 25th, a couple weeks away, I wanted to talk about some of the options that players have. Some of the players that are rumored to be available. Some of the players that teams have blatantly said are available. And I didn't really do this on purpose, but most of my list is big men. So we're going to talk about big men because I think a lot of teams that are like on the cusp could use a big or two here and there to kind of shore up some things for them. So let's just go off the rip out of nowhere. Let's just start with the big news that Blake Griffin has now signed to the Brooklyn Nets. He agreed to a buyout with the Detroit Pistons. Shout out to my mom, Michelle, who put me on game that when a player agrees to a buyout, they actually agree to give up some of that money. But Blake Griffin didn't give up that much money. I looked it up. He only gave out like $7 or $8 mil both of the remaining years of his contract. And apparently he's still getting like $20+ mil a year off the last 2 years of his contract. I'm not really sure how exactly that's going to work out, but shout out to him. So he agreed to a buyout with the Pistons, and now he's signed with the Nets. Now, I went in a conversation in the group chat a couple weeks, maybe like a week ago, about Blake Griffin and Kevin Love, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later, about is Blake Griffin washed? Is he washed? Does he still have anything left in the tank? And this is why some people might say he's washed. I myself didn't call him washed, if I recall in the group chat. I just said I don't see him being Blake. And now, granted, it's also because I don't watch many. I think I might have watched 1 or 2 Pistons games this season. Like what I'm tuning into that for. But shout out to my boy Trey. He basically is guaranteed that when Blake Griffin got to a better situation, he would play better again. So Blake Griffin currently is basically playing at career lows. 12.3 points, 36% shooting from the field, and 31% shooting from three, which are very close to career lows for him. The year before this, he had slightly worse numbers, but that's because he was really coming off of an injury. Now he's kind of still coming off an injury, battling the injury a little bit, but it's more so the fact that he really didn't want to be in Detroit, which I get. He didn't plan on being in Detroit when he signed his 5-year contract in 2017 with the Clippers. You know, he at one point he looked like he was really about to leave the Clippers back in 2017, and the Clippers basically begged him to stay, begged him to resign. They basically showed him a mock version of what his retirement ceremony would be in LA, pulled out the red carpet for him to want to resign, and then traded him immediately. And that just goes to show that, as we talked about it in the first episode, I don't want to harp on it too much because I'm gonna talk about it again a little bit later, but how fans and the media always beat up on players when they try to take control of their career, and they say there's no loyalty to these teams, but these teams are not loyal to these players at all. Blake Griffin's a prime example of that. He thought he was going to be in LA. He probably thought he was about to be in LA for the rest of this year. He was going to have that 5-year contract, and by the end of that, he would have been like mid-30s. He's 32 now. I think it was 2 more years left on the season, like 34 or 35. He might have thought he would have got maybe one more small contract or something like Tour, or maybe he would have went out and just retired when he was 34 or 35 at the end of this one. But in his mind, he was about to be a Clipper for life, and they traded him just like that. So what does this mean for the Nets? If I'm the Brooklyn Nets, why did I sign Blake Griffin? Now, granted, they signed him for, I think, like $1 million. Like, they signed him in the NBA world for pennies. If I'm the Nets, why did I sign Blake Griffin? I signed Blake Griffin because I'm hoping he can, I'm assuming, help with offense in the second unit. It's not like they need offense with the starters. In my opinion, it's not even really that they need offense, period, to be honest with you. In my humble opinion, I thought the Nets needed more defense. I thought they needed a versatile wing defender or a solid interior presence who can defend the rim really well. Blake Griffin really doesn't offer either of those. Yes, he is versatile in the sense of he can kind of guard bigs. He can kind of switch out in the pick and roll and stuff like that because he has some of that athleticism. But, I mean, he's 32, doesn't have as much as he used to. And he was never really known for being that great of a defender in the first place. So I guess their hope is he can really help bring a lot of offense to the second unit because of a lot of the trades they had to do to get players, to get James Harden mainly. They got rid of a lot of their depth, and then with Spencer Dinwiddie being out, maybe they were hoping to shore up that second unit a bit. And if Blake Griffin could come back and turn that 12 points a game to like 15 on like 40-ish, 45% shooting from the field, and maybe turn that 31% three to a 35% three, and be kind of close to that Blake Griffin that we saw when he first got to Detroit, where he's bringing the ball up, handling the ball a lot, doing dribble moves between the legs, step back threes, post game, post fades. Like, he showed more than just pure athleticism. Then this is a great pickup for them. I still don't know what they're going to do defensively, personally. That's just me. But, I mean, hey, if you score 150 points, does it really matter if you can't guard the other team? Because they probably can't score as much as you. So it really depends on who they're matching up with in the playoffs. Because this is, I mean, honestly, if we're going to talk about the Nets, we're going to talk about playoffs, we're going to talk about second round, Eastern Conference Finals. That's what they're shooting for. That's their goal, obviously, with the weapons that they've assembled. So don't nobody care about a random game in April on a Wednesday night. Like, that's not what we care about. They got to figure it out now so they better for the playoffs. And it's going to be really interesting to see what the Nets do, because just straight up, they're not good defensively. Just straight up, they're not. And I guess maybe their philosophy is, don't matter if we can just outscore you. I wish them the best. I do. Because KD, we all know that's my boy, you know what I mean? Though I wish they beat the Sixers, no. But I'm always happy to see KD have a good season. So, wish Blake the best. He's like one of my, like, you know, one of them players you hold near and dear to your heart. He kind of was going crazy and going viral when I first started watching basketball. So, he's always a player that I'm rooting for. I hope I'm wrong about him, and I hope he goes back to playing better like we know he can. But I'm very curious to see how it'll work out in Brooklyn for him. Let's talk about another power forward who's known for their offense and also not known for their defense. Kevin Love has been the center of a lot of, I don't know if I want to say trade rumors or buyout rumors or just rumors of him somehow ending up on another team in a variety of ways, I should say. A couple of things to note about Kevin Love, though. He's coming off an injury. He's only played 2 games this season because he's still struggling with his injury. If you ask me, he probably could come back. But maybe he's sitting out, and maybe the Cavs are sitting out hoping they can move him. But a big thing about Kevin Love, he's got 3 more years on his contract, including this year, and he's owed a lot of money. He's basically averaging about $30 million, including this year, the year after that, and the year after that. He becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2023. But he's owed a lot of money, so I don't think there's really a team out there that's a contending team out there that's going to be willing to trade enough assets to match up that salary, let alone finding players or assets that the Cavs want. Because if I'm the Cavs, I'm thinking, one, you got to match the salaries, but two, I also want some draft picks involved because I'm clearly rebuilding. Like, I'm getting rid of these players. We have a young team with Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. And now Jared Allen there. So they're going to want young players that are going to want draft picks. I don't know who is willing to do that because Kevin Love, great player. Very similar to Blake Griffin in the sense of it depends. I don't know what he still has in the tank. Last season he had a decent Kevin Love season. 17 points, 45% from the field, 37% from 3, which is great, and 9.8 rebounds. So we know Kevin Love, the last time we seen him, we talk at least 15 and 10 player, knocking down some threes, stretching the floor, doing what Kevin Love has been doing these last couple of seasons. But the issue is his defense. We always knew the issue for Kevin Love for his defense. So it's really going to take a team that is already solidified defensively to make that push for him. Because if you're struggling defensively, you ain't picking up Kevin Love. You just not. You ain't gonna waste your time with him. If I'm a team and I'm thinking about getting him, what team would I be? At first, it would have been the Nets if there was some sort of buyout situation with him and the Cavs, but I don't think a buyout's happening. There's rumors of both teams in LA looking at Kevin Love, but once again, they don't really have the money or the assets to trade for him. So if Kevin Love gets traded, I don't think it's really going to be to a quote-unquote contender. It might be to a playoff team, or it might be a team that's on the cusp of the playoffs and trying to use him to level up their team to becoming a 6, 7, 8 seed, something like that. But I don't think he's necessarily going to end up on a contender because he's owed too much money. Next, we're going to talk about Kristaps Porzingis. So the rumors are swirling around that the Dallas Mavericks are willing to trade Kristaps Porzingis. And my biggest question, honestly, is why? Why does it seem like, at least in my opinion, the Dallas Mavericks are giving up on Kristaps Porzingis way too early? Granted, it hasn't necessarily worked out as well as I think a lot of people expected for it coming into this season. The Dallas Mavericks, in my opinion, and a lot of other opinions on the internet, are definitely an underwhelming team. They're not performing to the level of that I think people expected them to, especially considering what they were last year. They definitely blew expectations out of the water last year. Luka Doncic blew expectations out of the water last year. A lot of people had him going into the season, I'll say. A lot of people had him, or at least expected him to be in MVP conversations going into the season. He hasn't played that way yet. The Dallas Mavericks haven't looked like that type of team that's championship favorites. A lot of people had them in championship contention going into the season. But you also got to realize, one, Kristaps has been injured. He's been struggling with some injuries. He's only played 20 games this season. But in those 20 games, he's averaging 20 points, 46% from the field, 34% from 3. Still giving you 8 rebounds and 1.5 blocks, which is down from his about 2 block average over the last couple of seasons. And one of the areas I think that the Mavericks are struggling in is defense. But once Porzingis gets back to being healthy and feeling more comfortable in that system, I think that defensive part is going to be remedied by having him on your floor. Kristaps Porzingis is a freak of nature. I compare him to how people love and praise Anthony Davis. They have, if anything, Kristaps Porzingis is actually taller than him. But the ability to be able to switch on offense might not be to the level of quickness that Anthony Davis has, but Kristaps Porzingis can definitely be a great pick and roll defender with hedging strong, giving his guards time to come back, and having the athletic ability to get back and guard the big who's rolling to the paint, or even switching himself depending on the level of the guard he's switching on. I just hope that the Mavericks don't give up on him too early. He's struggling with a back injury, so that back injury is definitely going to hinder some of his athleticism. So that's why I think they're not seeing some of that defense that they expected out of him. But I wouldn't trade him. I wouldn't trade him yet. He signed a 5-year extension last year with the Mavericks, and he's still on a contract to 2024, and he's owed about $30 million a year. Each year, that contract goes up and down, but it's about $30 million a year until 2024. Now, there's two ways to look at that. When you're at a level of player like Kristaps Porzingis, if I'm a team, you would be willing to trade some assets to get that type of player, because in your mind, just like mine, when he's healthy, he's an all-star, he's a superstar, he's a great player, a great two-way player, which they not a dime a dozen in this league. Let's be honest. He is, a unicorn. That's what they call him. So if I'm the Mavericks, I would wait this season out. You still got him on contract, like I said, till 2024. So he still has years under his contract. I would wait the season out. Honestly, unless somebody is really throwing everything in the kitchen sink at you in a package, I wouldn't force this trade. There's no reason for you to force this trade. You don't have to go all in with getting rid of him. You did a lot to get him. You know what I mean? So I would just wait it out. I think him and Luka really can have something good together. It might be gas. If it's gas, say, Hawk, calm down. Let me know. But Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic have the potential to be the type of game on the floor we see when we see LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It might be gas, but that's what I see. That's the level of play I can see coming from them, because those are that type of prototype players. Luka might not be LeBron in terms of, LeBron top 3 player all time type of level of play, but in terms of Luka's playmaking, his ability to see the floor, pass the ball, his ability to score for himself. And then same thing with Kristaps. Kristaps can make his own shot, create his own shots. He can play great defense. He can play off of the pick and roll with Luka well. He could be the ball handler in a pick and roll with Luka. They can do a lot of the same and similar things that Anthony Davis and LeBron do, especially defensively. I think that Luka can have the impact on the Mavs that Anthony Davis has for the Lakers. So, Mavericks, if you're watching this, which I know you're not, but if you are, please do not trade Kristaps Porzingis. Next on my list, I want to talk about DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Boogie Cousins. He's had an interesting career the last couple of seasons, and I really feel bad for him because so much of these last 3, 4, 5 seasons have been plagued by injuries. Started with his torn Achilles on the Pelicans when him and Anthony Davis were playing together, and people thought they were about to be an unstoppable force. I mean, we all know DeMarcus Cousins, when he was on the Sacramento Kings, was the best big in the league for years. It was really no comparison. He was the best center in the league. Don't at me about it because I'm not getting in a conversation, because it's facts, not fiction. And then when him and Anthony Davis got together in New Orleans, it was looking good. They were playing well. They had this twin tower system. Both of them can shoot from the outside. They can play inside. They can play off each other really well. They had a nice little high-low post situation going. Then he tears his Achilles. And everyone's like, dang, can he come back? Can he come back? Can he come back? And then he ends up on the Golden State Warriors. And believe it or not, I like the way he was looking out there. He was, I think at the time he was averaging about 15, 16 a game in his time over there. And then he tears his ACL. And it's like, yo, what is going on with this man? And then people are wondering, is he going to come back? And then he ends up on the Houston Rockets. And who do you have? And then he ends up on the Houston Rockets. And it was harder for me, honestly, to really get a feel for what to expect for him while he was in Houston. He played 25 games there. He started 11. There was a lot of rumors swirling around if he was upset with coming off the bench behind Christian Wood at one point. He said that's cap. He went on social media and said that's cap. That's not true at all. Honestly, I didn't think it was true, but it was really hard to get a gauge on him with his time in Houston, because at the beginning of the season, you had James Harden basically saying, I'm not trying to be here. These people are bums. I'm not playing. And then the James Harden trade happened. You bring in John Wall, and, they're trying to get acclimated. And then, the teams him and the team decided to part ways. Shout out to the team. They did pay him the rest. They guaranteed him his full contract. They paid him out. So even if nobody picks him up, at least he got paid, which I respected. Granted, his contract wasn't crazy, so that's probably why they did it. But I still respected the fact that they did it. And so now DeMarcus Cousins is an unrestricted free agent. Someone who this past season wasn't going crazy. He was averaging 9 points on 33% from the field, 33% from the three-point line. Nothing crazy. But you always got to wonder back in your head, can we get... I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. I was reading Kevin Love's stats. DeMarcus Cousins is still averaging 39 points, but on 37% from the field, 33% from three. And so a lot of teams are probably wondering, what are we going to get out of DeMarcus Cousins if we sign him? If I'm a team who knows they need a better center, I'm looking at you, Boston. I'm looking at you, both teams in LA, either Clippers or the Lakers. I'll be willing to risk it. I mean, what's there really to risk? You could probably sign him for what, $1 million, $1.5 million to finish out the season, $700,000. Like, you don't got to pay much. I'm sure there's a guy at the end of the roster who you can waive that you would probably ain't getting no minutes at all. At least DeMarcus, you might try to give him some minutes. And I would just give it a shot, to be completely honest with you, because DeMarcus Cousins, if he's even remotely healthy, even if he can get just back to a little bit what he was doing when he was with the Warriors before he tore his ACL, we're talking 16 points a game, a block and a half, 8 rebounds on 48% from the field. Granted, he was shooting 27% from three, but that was one of his career lows. He's normally around last couple seasons before his injuries, 35%, 37%, 35%, 36% from three. So you're talking about a big man who can stretch the floor, who can get rebounds, who can block shots, who can protect your interior, even if he's not on the floor for long, because you don't want him to be exerting himself to worry about his injury, worrying about his health. Even if you only got him on the floor, we're talking 20, 25 minutes a game. Someone who is a big body, who can protect the paint, who can guard the rim, who can make people second guess about driving. And I know DeMarcus Cousins isn't the Sacramento Kings DeMarcus Cousins he once was. I'm not saying he will be, because y'all might be thinking, Hawk, what are you talking about? He never really was that great of a defender before. And you're right. He never really was crazy for blocking shots. He never was, wild, stuff like that. But he's 6'10". He plays, in my opinion, he plays a little bigger than he is. I think he could be a good asset to a team. And I might have, a soft spot in my heart for DeMarcus Cousins. He's one of those players who, kind of was in their prime right when I started watching basketball, or started growing into their prime. I'll say as, I was watching basketball more and more, similar to Blake Griffin. And I want to see him. I want to see him play well. I truly, truly do. I feel like DeMarcus Cousins never really got a shot to show who he was in the league to the average fan, if that makes sense. Like, if you was a basketball head, you knew how nice he was in Sacramento. You knew. And then I think people started to find out who he was in New Orleans, and then injuries took over his career. So I really wish him the best. I hope a team picks him up. In my opinion, is really not that much of a risk. What do you have to lose? Give him a shot. Last but not least, I want to talk really quickly. Like I told you, I told you we were talking about all big men today. I told you that going in. Last but not least, I want to talk about Andre Drummond. We talked about last episode, and as of now, it looks like the Cavs are still refusing to play him until, indefinitely, literally until they find either a team for him to go to via trade or buyout, or unfortunately, he might not play the rest of the season, and this is why I think that. So he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. He's still owed about $30 million, I think his contract is. His contract for this season is, $28 million. So that's a lot of money to have to trade for. He's not really playing poorly, but he's not really playing, amazing. He was having an Andre Drummond season going into before they decided not to play him, before they traded for Jared Allen and basically decided to bench him. We talked about it last time, so I'm not going to go crazy, but he was averaging 17 points, 13 rebounds, slightly, 47% field goal percentage, which is his career low, but that's got to go into a lot of his, I think he was trying to show out because maybe he knew he was on the chopping block a little bit and he was trying to do a lot of post-ups, a lot of stuff he doesn't normally do, and forcing some things. He was forcing some things, I'll be honest. But he's still, in my opinion, the best rebounder in the league. If you're a team, if the Cavs aside, if him and the Cavs come to agreement and he gets bought out, I guarantee you he's gonna get picked up just as fast as Blake Griffin got picked up, and it's gonna be either the Celtics or the Lakers that pick him up. And I think this Andre Drummond situation is what's holding back a player like DeMarcus Cousins from getting picked up. Because if I'm the Celtics, if I'm the Lakers, and I know that it's a possibility that the Cavs will buy out Drummond, then I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till the last moment I can wait to see if that's possible. Because if it is possible, I'm going to go try to get Drummond over Cousins. Granted, Cousins shoots the ball a lot better. Obviously, way, way better, especially from three, can stretch the floor. But we already know Drummond can be an interior force. We know Drummond's going to get every rebound. All the rebounds when he's on the court. He's going to finish strong at the rim. He can block some shots. He's a little bit better of a defender than Cousins, but not much. Let's be real. He's really not much better of a defender, especially in the pick and roll situations, which everybody's running. He's not the best pick and roll defender, but he is somebody who can guard the paint, grab rebounds, and just clog up the paint off the bench. If that's what you're looking for, if I'm the Celtics, if I'm the Lakers, if I'm the Clippers, that's the type of player I'm waiting out on. And I think once Drummond gets picked up, then we'll see DeMarcus Cousins get picked up shortly after that. I don't know what the Kevin Love situation is going to be, like I said earlier. And Kristaps, I just hope the Mavericks don't trade him, to be completely honest with you. But that's all we got for today's episode of Hawks Hoops. Once again, if you made it this far, you're a real one. I really do appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out with me. We will see you next Tuesday. If you have any questions or topics that you want me to talk about, DM me on Instagram, hawkshoops TV, @Spectacular. Hit me up on Twitter. You can shoot me an email. I think it's hawkshoopspodcast@gmail.com. Or if you actually know me, just shoot me a text. Be like, hey, Hawk, what's your thoughts on this? But thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode. I'm out. Peace. See you next week.